One of the things about Return of the Jedi is that for many people, it's the weakest of the original three movies. There is no denying the fact that the Star Wars trilogy is still one of the greatest trilogies of all time. In all honesty, I respect all three movies. They're all brilliant. Regardless of that, it is still in my top 5 Star Wars movies. I will mention that this is my father's favorite Star Wars movies, though. And, well, that's gonna affect how he likes or dislikes this review. Welcome to the second episode of Retrospectives, a new series on the channel where we will discuss movies in ways that are different from standard reviews, filled with personal anecdotes. The first episode on Empire Strikes Back was just a while ago. Thank you so much for watching that. Today we wrap up the series with episode 2 and the final movie in this original trilogy. When I first watched Return of the Jedi, it was mere minutes after episode 5. I now realize how lucky I was to be able to just do that. Imagine being in 1980 and you had to wait 3 years to find out what happened next after Vader's revelation to Luke. Audiences in 1983 must have been dying to know. All I had to do was pop the movie into a player. My father said, and I quote, "Your generation has the benefit of seeing all of the first 3 movies at one time and accessing them objectively. I remember when I sat in the movie hall to watch episode 6, I had no idea what the movie would be like, having had no access to the storyline, no trailers or sneak peeks of any kind. I remember sitting fascinated as each scene revealed new things and answered the questions that had dogged us for years. I remember walking out feeling more than satisfied with the answers, and somehow the story was finally complete." And that's the lead into this video. Return of the Jedi takes place soon after the events of The Empire Strikes Back. Luke Skywalker is still coming to terms with the revelation from the last movie. Han Solo is frozen in carbonite and has been delivered to Jabba the Hutt by Boba Fett, and Leia, Lando, Chewie, C-3PO, R2-D2, and Luke, of course, are on the mission to try and save him. Meanwhile, the Empire is constructing Death Star 2.0 near the sanctuary moon of Endor, the process of which is being overseen by Vader and the Emperor himself, and the rebels begin to formulate a plan in order to destroy it before it comes operational. Meanwhile, Luke is told by Yoda on his deathbed that in order to become a true Jedi, he must face the Emperor and Vader and destroy them, and he is the last hope the galaxy has in achieving peace. However, Luke cannot find it in himself to kill his father, and believes there is still good in him, and tries to convert him back to the light side of the Force. It's been 37 years since this movie came out, and right out the gate, the visuals stand to this day, as much as the other two. The Battle of Endor during the finale is one of the most visually brilliant aerial battles I've ever seen. It's tense and fast-paced. It's also the most you see the Millennium Falcon come at risk from the Imperial fleet's firepower, as of this movie. The practical effects shine. The Death Star sets are amazing and some of the best in the movie. The first 30 minutes on Tatooine with Jabba are so intricate and full of colors and look absolutely beautiful. There are a few moments, definitely though, where you can tell the blue-green screen backgrounds in scenes, even during the speeder chase on Endor during the middle of the movie, but they're rather few and far in between, so they're not much of an issue. Return of the Jedi is very much Luke's story, and the last person, Vader, was the focus of it, and he is on the most advertising of that film as well, as much as it revolved around Luke and his confrontation with his father. In this, we really see him take his final steps towards becoming a Jedi and realizing his worst fears, that he will now probably have to kill his own father. Mark Hamill's performance as Luke shines in this movie. He's definitely at his most mature and even in some ways darkest here, with a very different stance to what he's usually had. He has become a fully badass character. He's no longer the boy from the farm who wanted to go to Tosche Station to pick up power converters. He is now a trained legend. And we see how he has used all of this training he's had over the years to become a truly formidable character. The real highlights in this movie, though, for me, even now, are its dialogue and soundtrack. Seeing as this was the final film in the saga, well, until further notice, the dialogue was meant to answer questions that had been raised after the last 2 movies and tie up those loose ends. Return of the Jedi managed to do exactly that. As we get to know who Darth answers to a lot more, we get to know about the Emperor more. We understand who the other Hope mentioned in Empire was, and we understand that Leia is the person being referred to, who is Luke's sister, which makes that kiss scene a lot more awkward now, doesn't it? And whether or not Vader still has it in himself to become good again. There's so many compelling moments of dialogue in this movie that honestly deserve more and more revisits every time. The scene between Yoda and Luke on Dagobah while Yoda's on his deathbed, wonderfully crafted sequence. The scenes with Luke and Vader are so powerfully done. The conversation they have on Endor and Luke's trying to bring him back to the light, but Vader is like, it's too late for me. And I loved that. It was still one of the most tragic moments, in my opinion. When they finally get to the Death Star and the conversation between Luke and the Emperor begins, and you have all three characters interacting in that space. It's such a masterfully done sequence, and it's just unforgettable. I've quoted that scene so many times. Ian McDiarmid absolutely shines in this movie. Even Luke revealing to Leia that she's his sister, and the conversation between them. It's such a profound sequence. Granted, one of my little issues with this was I wish that there was a moment where Leia sort of reflected on the fact that Vader was, because of that, her father, but that's not in the movie. That would have been nice to have, but whatever, it's not that big a problem. The soundtrack by John Williams, fantastic and grand. Even now, when I listen to the Emperor's theme, it sends chills. When it plays after Luke cuts Vader's hand off, and you hear the bass suddenly go up because it's a darker version of it, because Luke is now mere seconds away from his final turn. He just sort of realizes that, oh my god, what am I doing? And he throws his saber away. It is a very masterfully done moment. That entire sequence of events during the third act of Return of the Jedi make this movie go from what it was, which was rather good at first, to the final act, which is just so masterfully done. It makes this entire film almost as great as the other two. Whereas the first two are pretty much perfect movies for me, I have minor issues with parts of Return of the Jedi, mainly its second act. I think it drags a little bit in the middle when you get to the Ewoks. Aside from that, I don't really have any other major issue with this movie. Ian McDiarmid as the Emperor was just so menacing, devious, powerful, scary. I have so many adjectives written here, and so unforgettable and terrifying. I can't see any other actor pulling it off as well as he did. Even in The Rise of Skywalker, which is a movie that nobody really likes the fact that he's in it, he brought the character to life again so well. Let's quickly talk about the Ewoks because we have to. Many viewers considered them to be a distraction and annoying at first, and were not pleased with them. In my opinion, they were actually a lot of fun, and they were sweet, and they were also a great help to the rebels in the final battle. Yeah, at first they tried to burn the heroes, but that didn't work, and Luke lifting the chair with 3PO so you can get the message across to the Ewoks via 3PO that they meant business. When they finally solved that, they're not gonna burn. The heroes weren't exactly gonna burn. We're still halfway into the movie. And there is some really clever production design with the Ewok village and the stuff with the trees. I thought that was wonderful as well. And C-3PO being proclaimed as a kind of a god because he's golden was actually pretty funny. I'm not gonna lie to you. That part did get a laugh out of me. It's not something I minded, the Ewoks. Granted, they weren't amazing either, but it's not the worst thing in Star Wars. To each their own, though. The only real issue, like I said, is I wish it was a little paced better in the middle. Besides that, I really don't have much of an issue with Return of the Jedi at all. But I have to talk about the scene in this movie which has always stuck with me, which is of course Darth Vader's sacrifice. Now, granted, while the new trilogy may have made certain things a bit obsolete when it comes to Anakin's final sacrifice due to the Emperor being in The Rise of Skywalker, please make no mistake, it's just as affecting as ever. The visual silence of Vader just looking upon his son being electrocuted after his hand was cut off, and then just watching, and you can tell even through the mask that something's turning within him. Something feels off. He's not the same Vader as he was maybe 2 scenes prior. He's conflicted. He wants to stop this from happening, and then finally, when he picks up the Emperor and he throws him down that shaft, you could say that is Anakin fulfilling his chosen one prophecy, and in some ways it definitely is, but I always saw it as a more powerful thing because it's a father who's saving his son from certain death and making sure Luke doesn't turn into what he became. It's more profound for me because I think if it was just about fulfilling a prophecy, that's also a bit superficial. Like, there's got to be a more deeper meaning behind it. I'm not trying to upset the fans of the lore here or the franchise in a nutshell, but the fact that he's done this more to save his son was what was more important for me, and what ultimately that's what redeemed him more in my eyes than the fulfilling of a prophecy. And it's like the Force. It can be the energy between all things that is as it is defined in the original trilogy, and then you get to Phantom Menace, and they're also midi-chlorians. You know, there's two ways to look at it, I guess. I don't really know. Nothing will change how wonderfully this scene and this movie is crafted. And that's just my personal opinion on that. In conclusion, I love Return of the Jedi just as much as I did before. It may not be as perfect as the first two in this trilogy, but it remains one of the better entries in the Star Wars saga. It's also my favorite trilogy closer of the three. It's a really solidly done conclusion, and nothing will change that in my opinion. It still ranks in lists of some of the greatest movies ever made, and it deserves that title. I leave you with my favorite shot in Star Wars. In my Empire video, I said my favorite shot is in this movie. Here it is. The use of light in this scene as Luke confronts Vader, the camera moving with them. It's a masterful shot, a perfect cinematic moment. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you guys liked this video, and like I said, the opinions expressed in this are mine and mine only. If you guys have any comments about that, leave them down below. I'm so glad you guys are enjoying the retrospective episodes. I can't wait to do more and beyond Star Wars itself. As always, if you like this, guys, please do subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the movies.